My mom has always been my biggest inspiration. She was one of the first women in the world to ever become a chess grandmaster, and she has always taught me that even when nobody else believes in you, you should believe in yourself. I have known Levy for a while. He's the biggest chess content creator in the world, and what he has been able to achieve is truly admirable as well. More people than ever play chess today, and it's a lot thanks to him. However, Levy, also known as Gothamchess, is a strong international master who dreams of becoming a grandmaster one day and is studying now harder than ever to achieve it. This year, he has had fantastic results and has beaten several grandmasters, and so we thought, wouldn't it be an insane idea to set up a 1v1 match between Levy and Pia? We got this idea back in July, and 3 months later, here we are. We decided to call it the Battle of Generations, and today, they played their first match. This was a classical game, and Levy had the white pieces, and if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I was so nervous for my mom. I had no idea how this was going to go, and even though my mom is the more experienced player, and well, she's a grandmaster, she's also 61 years old, or young. Maybe that's what you should call it, 61 years young. And Levy, well, he's in his 20s, and he's very hungry for getting that grandmaster title. So, the game started, they shook hands, the arbiter started the clock, and then Levy went d4. My mom replied d5, and after that he went for bishop f4, meaning that this was going to be a London. I thought that was very funny considering the fact that Levy has lately been doing some memes on the internet about the London opening, where like a little baby gets a little kick in the head and then it starts playing the London when it grows up, and that meme went viral, and here he is playing the London himself. So my mom went c5, which is one of the most dangerous moves, or more active moves, maybe is the way of calling it. I don't know why I always use the word dangerous, but more active moves. And then Levy replied e3. She went knight c6, and he replied c3, and now we had this little pyramid of pawns, or triangle as some people call it, in the middle. And my mom ended up going knight f6. They were playing quite fast at this moment, and Levy went knight d2, which is considered to be one of the better lines here. Now, it's really important to know that when he goes knight d2, he's basically saying at this point that whenever my mom takes the pawn on d4, if she ever decides to do it, he's going to take back with the e-pawn, because this knight can never go to c3. So that's exactly what my mom did. He captured the pawn back with the e-pawn, and then she went g6. This move maybe looks a little bit strange because it's kind of, it's not so unusual, or sorry, it's not so usual, but the idea of this move g6 is that she wants to fianchetto her bishop, and then she's going to have a bishop on g7 that's going to be sniping down the whole board, and maybe she's gonna dream of having ideas such as going e5 at some point in time. Now, Levy actually plays this a lot himself with black, I got to know. Levy played h3 with the idea of getting his knight out without my mom's bishop pinning that knight, because that can get pretty annoying. And she simply castled. Levy got out his knight, and so far everything seemed normal, but then she played this move knight d7. And at this moment, she's very clearly indicating, I am going to play the move e5. There is nothing stopping me from going e5. That's going to be my move. I got knight, the bishop, the other knight, all pointing towards this e5 square, and I will be playing that move. Now, what are the drawbacks of going for that move? Well, the drawback is that she's going to get a isolated pawn in the middle of the board, which could become weak and which could be a problem for her later on. Now, what I thought was really funny was that at this point in time, both my mom and Levy were going up several times to the confessional booth, which is a special little thing that we've set up for this tournament, where the players are able to talk to a camera and talk about their thoughts of the game. And when they do so, those thoughts later come up on the live stream, so we get access to hearing how the players feel during the game, which I think is super cool and something that more tournaments should do. So I'm going to insert a little clip of how my mom was feeling in the opening at some point, and also of Levy. But yeah, I find that format so interesting.
Oh, so we have started the first game. I'm very, very excited. I was also very excited to see what Levy was going to play. He can play lots of different things. Now we have a London, and yeah, I am playing g6, which is quite normal, the bishop going out that way, but I am playing this way today. So it's very, very exciting. It looks like a very calm opening, and let's see what will happen later on in the game.
Hello, everybody. I was hoping to do this first, but I guess Pia already did. I mean, I don't know. She got up first. I don't know if she just went to the toilet or to do one of these. So, yeah, I feel kind of important, you know, because I've only seen top grandmasters do these things, and I've always enjoyed watching them. I've never been able to talk to someone in the middle of a game. So, where to start? Okay, let's start with, like, you know, venue, obviously very nice. It feels a bit strange as a content creator not to be in control of the production, so hopefully Anna is doing a great job and the commentary is going well. It's day one, so there might be some technical issues. Please forgive. The soundproofing in here is really good. Very nice place to play. We got like all the snacks in the world. But it's very convenient that, I come to Sweden and I play a match against Anna's mom, and the second we start, 2 ambulances go by immediately. So I don't know what emergency services Anna is calling to distract me, but they're also distracting Pia. Now about the game itself. I played the London for a few reasons. It's like day one, right? So I don't know what kind of a forum I'm in, so I wanted to play like a solid positional game. I predicted that Pia might play this kind of structure, Carlsbad, which is funny because I've played this structure with the black pieces. But she played g6, which I did not expect. I was expecting just some, she develops her light squared bishop and plays some normal moves. g6 is also, I think, normal. I don't know how to exploit it from this move order, so I'm just going to play a normal game. Also, I just made a meme recently that went super viral. It has like 60 million views, and it's the baby getting hit in the head as a, when it's a baby. And then it plays the London system later in life. So I kind of have to, back up my trash talk and play the London and, give it a good showing. So played a solid opening. We'll have a interesting maneuvering game. Also got some information. Clearly, Pia wants to play d4, d5 on the first move instead of d4, knight f6, avoiding all of my Trumpowskis and stuff like that. So 21 games to go, 22 including this one. Maybe see you guys later.
So anyways, Levy castled here, and then my mom went for e5. Now she's doing this big break in the center. And Levy has to take, he cannot allow her pawn to march, because if the pawn marches, that pawn is going to become so strong, and she's threatening a fork right now as well. So she took with the knight, and we got a big trade in the center. And after this, he went for this move knight f3, which was a really strong move, because now this knight is on its way to go to d4, which is where the knight wants to be. Typically when you're playing against an isolated pawn, which is what my mom has on d5, you want to place a piece right in front of the pawn so that pawn can't ever push, and to really fixate it. It's like you're really fixating that pawn there, and you're saying you're not going to be able to move it. So it made a lot of sense. And now actually my mom had a few options of how to play. The best option was for her to trade off the knights and then bring out her queen to b6 and try to get some counterattack by threatening the pawn on b2. But this is quite difficult, and so she ended up playing knight c6, which looks natural because she's setting up for her pawn push d4. She wants to trade this isolated pawn, and so it's a move that makes a lot of sense. But Levy now played queen d2, and here actually my mom looked at him a little bit funnily, because she hadn't seen this move. So she wasn't expecting this whatsoever. And in the post-game interview, Levy asked her, "Pia, why did you look at me as if I'm an idiot when I play this move?" And I thought that was hilarious. So she ended up, after thinking for almost nothing, only 2 minutes, she ended up playing the move d4 to try to trade off that pawn. And now Levy had to make a choice, but the only way that he could try to keep an advantage here, or gain an advantage, better said, was to push his c-pawn one step and not trade that pawn, because if he trades off these pawns, my mom's pieces are going to become a lot more active. Now, I'm saying the word my mom a lot of times this video, and I will admit that I feel a little bit strange not calling her Pia, because I feel like I'm commentating Pia's game and I'm just calling her my mom. But it also feels strange to call my mom Pia. So let me know in the comments if you think that I should call her Pia or my mom. But it feels weird to call her by her first name. I've never done it in my life, so that's why I just keep calling my mom. But after c4, she went a5 because she wanted to prevent him from going b4 and simply just marching and taking over the whole queen side. He went rook e1, she played bishop e6, and now Levy was in a very, very, very comfortable position. After she went bishop e6, he did not doubt for a second. He instantly played knight g5, threatening this bishop. And now my mom could feel like she was in deep trouble. And I also think that he went up to talk to the confessional booth because he was feeling fantastic. So I could really see here in my mom's face that she was not so happy about the position. And the thing was that without it even seeming so, Levy's position had just gone really good because of the fact that this bishop that my mom has on e6 is such a bad bishop and he can't go anywhere. And this move knight g5 is just so strong because it's threatening the bishop, forcing it to move from the square where it's at right now, pretty much. There's so many threats right now of both the rook takes bishop, knight takes bishop. So she pretty much has to move this bishop back to a square, but the bishop on d7 is just really not doing anything. It's like a big pawn, and it doesn't really have any future, and it's even kind of blocking the queen's protection of the d4 pawn. So this was just really not a nice position for my mom, and I could see how much she hated it when she was playing it, and she was really upset, I think, that she had gotten this position out of the opening. But here Levy had a chance. He had a chance of gaining a huge advantage, but he had to be quick to do this. He couldn't wait around and be slow at this moment. He had to find a very accurate move, and that move was c5. He had to find this move with the idea of placing his bishop on c4 and then going for this f7 pawn and threatening things such as bishop d6. But he didn't find this move, and after spending 25 minutes thinking, he went for the move rook d1, and this was a huge mistake. Now, why was this a huge mistake? Well, this was a huge mistake, not because this was a bad move, but because he had spent 3 minutes, I suppose it is, on it, and that, at this point in time, when he only had 21 minutes left, was like literally more than the time he had left now. So that was, now the tides were turning, and he still had a better position, but now my mom had almost double his time, and I think that gave her a lot of confidence at this point. So she spent 7 minutes and went rook e8, and this was now an important moment because she wants to trade off these rooks, but what she more importantly wants is that she wants to be able to place a bishop on e8 so that the bishop can always defend this f7 pawn, which was the problem with if Levy pushed the c pawn and went bishop c4. So he now played c5, but he did it one move too late. And now the idea of rook d1 and c5 didn't coordinate so well because now it almost didn't make sense that the rook had gone to d1 and he had lost a very valuable tempo. So my mom had to find this incredible move, knight e5, to stop the bishop from going up to c4, or if Levy wants to take it, well, at least she would get his dark squared bishop. This was a crucial move, and she had to find it, and she did. But now the time was starting to get closer. He had 16 minutes, she had 24. And he ended up playing here bishop e4, threatening the pawn on b7. Now finally, this bishop that had been so bad before on c8 and d7 and e6 got to find its home and ended up going to c6 and was going to be able to be traded for Levy's bishop, which for her was an incredible success. And Levy ended up playing queen c2, defending everything, and she decided to go for h6, threatening the knight, because she really wanted to get that knight out of there. Now, in this position, after queen c2, there were crazy ideas of d3, but those kind of moves were just really crazy because she had to give up a pawn, which was so difficult to do here. And so it made a lot of sense that she didn't play this. And I honestly never thought that she would do that. My mom is not known for sacrificing a lot of pieces and pawns. So h6 was played, and now Levy finally took the knight on e5. My mom took with the rook, taking with, well, actually now she could have taken with any other piece as well, but taking with the rook was good. And then he played knight f3. So here she decided to ultimately just trade everything off. She went rook takes e4, and then there was a big chunk of trades in the center, and the queen ended up going to e4, and now her pawn on b7 is hanging. And what we see is also that d4 pawn is becoming a little bit weak for her. So it's looking as if white has a lot of play. It's looking as if Levy has a lot of things that he can do. But actually, after she plays queen c7, she's defending the b7 pawn and she's attacking the c5 pawn. And the question becomes, how does Levy defend the c5 pawn? If he goes something like rook c1, well, then the rook is now not going to be in such a good position anymore. And so what is he going to do? So Levy actually ended up not defending that pawn, and he simply captured the one on d4. And then my mom took the pawn on c5, and now she's threatening to place her rook on d8 and pin this knight on d4. So Levy has to move his knight. But as we can see now, my mom's position is a million times better than what it was before, where Levy was just pressuring her so much in the opening. So here Levy, he could go for a few different options. He could play knight c2, he could play knight f3, but he decided to go for knight b3, threatening the queen. But now he placed the knight in a square where it would really easily be attacked with moves such as a4. She could push that a pawn and attack it. And we can see now that his b2 pawn is hanging as well, because this bishop on g7 is just roaming free on the board. And the things have turned here. The tides have turned. So she spent a little bit of time thinking and ended up playing queen b4, which was a fantastic move. It was the best move in this position. And Levy at this point only had 2 minutes left. He had such little time. And I was just feeling really nervous about the fact that maybe her time would run really low as well. But she was playing a lot of moves quite quickly here. So Levy ended up trading off the queens. And now she was going to have a better endgame. But the question was, would she be able to win a better endgame with the time situation that there was? So Levy played rook d7, which was very natural, threatening a few pawns, and she captured the pawn on a2. He took her pawn on b7, and now it was crucial for her to defend the pawn on b4, because there's not really any way for Levy to defend the pawn on b2, and so now she would just end up being in an endgame where she was a pawn up. Levy played knight d4, she took on b2. Levy played rook b8, and he was trying to be tricky. I mean, the idea of this move is that he's preventing her from playing bishop c5, which is the move she wants to do, threatening the knight and threatening on f2. And so after king g7 and rook b7, if she goes for bishop c5 now, which I was screaming, please mom, don't go for bishop c5, then he has this nasty fork, knight e6 check. Pawn cannot take because the rook is pinning the pawn and she would lose the bishop and lose the game. But she almost gave me a heart attack, as she did move the bishop, but she moved it one square short and went bishop d6, threatening checkmate in one move. Levy played king f1, and she started now playing very nicely and accurately, and she brought the king up to f6, which could look a little bit scary, but you know what they say, you should have an active king in the endgame, and that king ended up becoming really good. So here, after rook b5, she went rook d2, threatening the knight, and which was maybe not the best move. She could maybe have played bishop e5, but this position was so complicated and both players had very little time, and so this was incredibly complicated, especially for Levy, obviously, because he was worse, but I think also for my mom to find out how exactly to win this. So he played knight c6, and this knight that you're seeing right here, I'm going to tell you, it's starting the saga of becoming the most annoying knight on the whole universe of knights. This knight would end up becoming so annoying for me that was rooting for my mom. And yeah, you're going to see it. So knight c6, the king went back to g7, and going to make some moves now quite quickly, but the knight went to a5. Levy was basically just trying to be as annoying as with that knight as possible, and he was trying also to stop, of course, the b pawn from pushing. Because if my mom pushes that pawn all the way up, I mean, it's going to have chances of promoting. So she played rook c2. The knight went to b7, threatening the bishop. She played bishop e7. The knight went back to a5. We saw bishop c5. Now the pawn on f2 was going to fall, but Levy was playing this in a very tricky way. He went knight b3, which looks crazy because he's giving up the pawn on f2. But after rook takes f2 and king g1, it looks as if there's a million wins for black, but it's actually not so easy yet. So she went back with her bishop to a7, and I just need to tell you that when Levy played this move, king g1, he actually made that move with 1 second on the clock left. So Levy was making a lot of these moves with just a couple seconds left on his clock, and the players are not getting any extra time after move 40 either. So they're only playing a 90-minute plus 90-minute game with 30-second increment per move. So he played king h2 with 11 seconds on the clock, and this was starting to get crazy. Now my mom, she was getting really low on time as well. She had 5 seconds on the clock when she played rook f4. And so this was just pure chaos, and I thought that I was going to lose it in the commentary. I thought that I was going to have a heart attack, and I really could not hide the fact that I was terrified for my mom losing on time here somehow. So I got to finally understand how it feels for her to watch my games. After Levy went knight c1, my mom spent 34 out of her 35 seconds on finding the move rook d4, and she ended up playing rook d4 with only 1 second on the clock, and she didn't even realize how little time she had. I mean, look at how slow her hand movement was there. She told me after the game that she didn't realize, and that to me was the craziest part. So Levy played knight a2, threatening the pawn, but Pia was playing this very accurately. She went rook d2. Levy can never really take that pawn, because then the rook is going to go to b2, and then the knight is going to be pinned, and he's just not going to be able to move the knight nor the rook for many moves, which would be losing. So the knight was kind of roaming around. Knight c1, rook b2, knight d3, rook b3, knight c1. Now finally she was able to play rook b1, and after the knight went up to a2, she pushed her pawn finally. The knight went to c3. She played rook b2, the knight went to a4, she played rook b1, and after Levy repeated, she finally found this beautiful idea of bishop g1 check to now actually have the bishop and the rook coordinate with each other, and after Levy takes the pawn, have this beautiful rook e3 check, pinning the knight now, which has been the idea the whole time, and after king f4, g5 check, king f5, she played this beautiful move, rook g3, which is now threatening the pawn on g2. And let me tell you, she played this move with 2 seconds on the clock as well. But she was playing this so accurately. It was incredible. Levy was posing so many difficult questions to her, as if, you know, what are you going to do now? How are you going to respond to this? And she just kept finding all these beautiful ideas, and she was playing this so accurately, and it was amazing, truly amazing to see, because Levy was playing this very well as well. He was giving it his best chance, and he was trying to do his best out of the situation. So rook takes g2, the knight went up to e4, she played bishop d4, and after Levy threatened that bishop on d4 and she went bishop a1, she said, I'm not moving that bishop out of that diagonal, and that would end up being really, really, really important. Levy went rook b3, she played rook g1, the knight went back into the defense, stopping the rook from going to f1. She played this really slow but prophylactic move, king h7, stopping any check from Levy, and after rook d3, she activated her rook on to b1. Now it was time to start checking that king on the side. The rook went up to d6, and now actually after rook b5 check, she's just completely winning. I mean, she's obviously 2 pawns up right now, but after the king goes to g4, she has this beautiful idea of rook b4 check. The king cannot go to f5 or h5 because it gets checkmated on f4 or h4, so the king has to go to f3. And now, after rook b3 check, there's nothing to do, because after the king moves, she will be taking the knight on g3, and after the king captures, she will be going bishop e5 check, and she will end up being a bishop and 2 pawns up in that endgame. And therefore, after rook b3, Levy spent a few seconds thinking, but then stopped the clock and resigned. And this was the first game that finished in the whole match. And Pia won. My mom won this first game. And it was an incredibly fought game by both sides. It was so intense and thrilling to watch, and obviously I was really happy for my mom. But yeah, Levy was such a good sport after the match, and they were talking and analyzing for a little bit, and he was smiling. They were both smiling, and it was just overall a really great experience. So this was game number 1 of a 22 game match, Battle of Generations. And we're just so incredibly excited to be able to show you this match. So there's going to be 3 more classical games, and after that there's going to be 6 rapid games, and then there's going to be 12 blitz games. But each game and the different time controls give a certain amount of points. So now that my mom won this first classical game, she gets 3 points, Levy gets 0. But tomorrow is going to be a new day, and we will see what happens then. So very exciting to watch. Please tune into the live broadcast. We're live streaming this on our Twitch channels, on both me and Levy, and on our YouTube channel. So watch this live. Got the schedule and everything up. We're streaming this at 3 p.m. CST every day. Don't miss the next round. It's going to be amazing. And thank you so much for watching this video. And let me know in the comments who you are rooting for in this match. And, well, I was going to say that you have to say my mom, but you don't have to. You can also say Levy. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you all very soon. I'll see you at the live stream.